CLNSradio.com, the home of Internet Sports Talk Radio.
You're listening to the Celtics Late Night Show, live at www.CelticsLateNightShow.com.
Hey, Rex, you suck. Hey, James Stern, you suck too. Lakers, you suck first of all. Come on, Celtics!
You gotta love it like that. Little kids just, smarter than most of the fans out there.
Come on, Celtics!
Now, the hosts of tonight's show, Nick Gelso and B. Paul.
Come on, Celtics!
Good evening, Celtics fans. Welcome to the Celtics Late Night Show. It is Monday evening. It is 9 p.m. You're listening to the Celtics Late Night Show live on CLNSradio.com. Brandon, we are live. What's up? 2 weeks in a row.
As promised, we are back 2 weeks in a row. This is like Guinness World Record here.
Man. Yeah.
Most consecutive episodes of Celtics Late Night Show, too.
Well, truth is, Brandon, there is stuff to talk about. I mean, I guess we're in a holding pattern. The 11th hour, actually 6.5 hours into negotiation. They're still going regarding the NBA lockout, Brandon. What's the latest you've heard?
Well, the latest I've heard is that, I've heard the media has been chased off by a hotel manager outside of the hotel they are meeting at. So that's one thing. They did today announce that, or there was reported that they do believe that there is a new deal with the mid-level exception. That's one of the tasks that they had to solve. That did come out today. And also, they're saying they're making progress. No deal is made. But finally, now that it's crunch time, they're meeting and negotiating, whereas I remember when we were doing shows 2 or 3 months ago, they were just ignoring the fact. If they could have got these negotiations done back when we were saying they should have started negotiating, we may have a deal by now. But as of right now, no deal yet. And it looks like maybe the first 2 weeks are going to be canceled shortly by David Stern.
Yeah, and the truth is, Brandon, let's think about this logically. You knew it was going to come down to crunch time. The NFL, what was it, a week prior to training camp that the NFL lockout ended?
Yeah, it was a week.
Or a day or two. Was it a week?
Yeah, it was. It was right. It was in crunch time. It was when a deal needs to be made. But the other thing with the NFL is they were negotiating all along. They just couldn't reach a deal. They were hiring mediators, everyone to try to get a deal done. Whereas the NBA, really until this past week, really didn't start pushing and doing extended meetings until this week. Last night they met for 5.5 hours, almost until midnight Eastern Standard Time. Today they're in the 6.5 hours of meetings. So finally they're starting to push. But the thing is, I think it may be too late for a deal to be made without losing some of the NBA season.
Yeah, again, we are on the I guess they're calling it the 11th hour or 25th hour, whatever. It is down to crunch time. We talked earlier this afternoon, Brandon, and we talked about the possibility of maybe a good announcement before the show tonight. Taking on a celebratory tone here, and really that's not going to happen. And I don't think anybody who has been close to the negotiations or even following them at all ever really thought that tonight or today a resolution would be made. However, I did notice, you mentioned a few seconds ago about the new mid-level. I noticed your post on CLNS Radio this evening regarding the mid-level. What do you know about that?
Well, pretty much. They didn't release the details. It's all pretty much reports at this point as far as the mid-level exception goes. But the owners did want to cut back on the mid-level exception because they were getting themselves in bad deals. Pretty much the purpose of the mid-level exception was to pay average players superstar salaries to be on good teams, as you saw with Jermaine O'Neal and both Rasheed Wallace with the Boston Celtics. Without the mid-level exception, the Celtics probably wouldn't have been able to get those two guys who were hoping to be key ingredients of a championship contender. So the owners were looking to decrease the length and the amount of the mid-level exception to make better competition and to lessen the financial burden on the owners with all these supposed losses that they're taking upon themselves.
Okay, Hoops fans, you're listening to the Celtics Late Night Show. We are live right here on CLNSradio.com. If you're listening to us on Blog Talk Radio, you could switch on over to CLNSradio.com. You'll be on the homepage in the right-hand corner, top right. There's a big bright button that says Listen Live. Click that. You'll find the BTR media player as well as a host chat right there on the Listen Live page. You want to listen to us over on CLNSradio.com. Quickly, and we're not going to plug the world tonight, Brandon, but I definitely do want to bring reference to the fact that CLNS Radio is now spotlighted on YouTube. You can find just about every episode of this show, as well as Technically Speaking, on Wednesday evenings over on YouTube. As time progresses, we will most likely be uploading most episodes of all shows that broadcast on the network. But for right now, phase one, is the Celtics Late Night Show and Technically Speaking. YouTube has definitely added a nice flair component to the network, Brandon.
It has. It allows more people to converse with fellow Celtics fans, fellow NBA fans, fellow sports fans in general. I mean, YouTube has a huge fan base, and also it's easy to listen to YouTube. I mean, we're going to post the videos. All you have to do is click play, and there it is, episode 90, episode 91 of the Celtics Late Night Show. You can listen right on YouTube. So definitely more convenient for the listeners. You can listen there. You can subscribe to iTunes, so you can listen on your way to work. We're just trying our best to make it the most convenient, whatever is the most convenient way for you to listen to the show. We want you to be able to hear it each and every week.
Absolutely, and don't forget to sign up for our email blast, too, as well. We won't spam you. We'll send out one email per day around 4 p.m. with all the blog updates and show announcements right here on CLNS Radio. Brandon, let's move on to the topics at hand here. We do have a guest this evening. Tell us a little bit about our guest and, what's on the slate of topics for tonight.
Well, tonight we are going to be joined by Art Rondeau. He did a guest piece for SheridanHoops.com earlier today. He pretty much proposed a temporary plan to solve the lockout and get the NBA season played as scheduled. It was a good concept. I'm not sure if I 100% agree with it, so we're going to have some questions for him regarding that. But it was a fantastic piece, and you can see that on SheridanHoops.com. And Art Rondeau, he has also worked with numerous basketball players, numerous athletes, the psychological aspect and mental aspect of sports. And he did coach Allen Houston to his best shooting. The season before he coached Allen Houston, or I should say the season after he coached Allen Houston, he did put up his best field goal percentage and three-point percentage. So we're going to talk to him about that and maybe give him see if we can get any tips for Rajon Rondo with his free throw program that he has going.
Yeah, Art Rondo, not to be confused with Rajon Rondo. However, we could, if we could somehow get these two guys to work together, that'd be great because we know Rondo's luck at the stripe. Interesting, though, this Art Rondo, he works with several different websites, and he did cover the lockout pretty in-depth, but what does interest me is really his psychological aspect to the game. We all know, and it was well reported following the season, that the Celtics employed a sports psychologist to go on the road with them, and I guess that's similar to what Art does, correct?
Exactly. Yes, it is similar. He doesn't promote it as sports psychology. He has another word for it. We can get more information from him, but it did, like I just said, it did help. It did help Allen Houston have his best shooting year of his career. And Houston, actually, in the New York Times article that was never published, he did say how much Art helped him in improving his mental aspect of the game and performing better on the court.
We can look forward to hearing from Art Rondo around 20 minutes past the hour. So it's about 11 minutes from now, Brandon. Art's going to call in. We're going to talk to Lockout. Try and maybe hook him up with our Rajon Rondo. We'll see what happens. Yeah, that was your cue, B.
Oh, yeah. See,
I know we're backstepping here. We already talked about that. I led us into a brick wall.
Yeah, I'm sitting there. You're leading. Your lead-ins, it's just like, what does he want me to say? I'm sitting here, I don't know what to say.
Basically, I'm looking for you to take the mic away from me because I have nothing to say. Not that there's nothing to say about Art. There's a lot to say. I just don't want to over tease it and kind of break up what he's going to talk about tonight on the show. Brandon, let's take our first commercial break. We'll open the call lines for a brief 10 minutes. If anybody's interested in calling in, the call-in number is 347-215-7771. We're going to come back, talk a little hoops. We got a lot on slate here in addition to Rondeau. We'll talk lockout talk and then go right on to Art when he calls in. So, Brandon, we'll take our first commercial break right now, and we'll be right back. You're listening to the Celtics Late Night Show right here live on CLNSradio.com.
Your first choice for Internet Sports Talk Radio, CLNS Radio.
This is Avery Bradley of the Boston Celtics, and you're listening to CLNS Radio.
Here's what you've been missing if you haven't heard Mike T.
Speaking of pansies, what are your feelings? 500 yards passing?
Are you going to call Tom Brady a pansy? Bite your tongue.
Could I have one or the other? Looks or good quarterback?
Here's his resume. 2 MVPs, 2 Super Bowl MVPs, 3-time Super Bowl champion. He is married to a billionaire supermodel, and he's gorgeous. He's just a gorgeous, gorgeous man. So, yeah, Mike T. It's sports and a whole lot more with my buddy Tyler Tomlinson and me, Mike Fay, every Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern right here on CLNSradio.com.
This is Luke Herrington, and you're listening to CLNS Radio.
CelticsBlog.com, the online community for Celtics fans. Blogging since 2004, Jeff Clark is a diehard for life. Hey, did I mention it's also family friendly and there's tons of ways to interact. You blog, comment, forums, chat, and now the new fan posts and fan shots. It's all part of what's going on at the rapidly expanding SB Nation community of blogs. Hey, and guess what? Celtics Stuff Live simulcast from Celtics Blog every Sunday night. CelticsBlog.com to get all the latest updates and thoughtful commentary on everything from the Celtics and the NBA. So check it out at CelticsBlog.com.
Okay, Hoops fans, welcome back to the Celtics Late Night Show. We're live right here on CLNSradio.com. Call-in number is 347-215-7771. Brandon, we're back. We're talking hoops. We're talking NBA lockout. We're waiting for Art Rondeau to call in, which should be very shortly. But until we get to Rondeau, we talked a little bit about the MLE, the mid-level exception, being negotiated as far as lowering the MLE. In your opinion, Brandon, does that benefit or detract from teams like the Boston Celtics, especially the Celtics, who have the money to be able to pay for some of these guys with the MLE? So how does this benefit the Boston Celtics, if at all?
I don't think it does benefit the Boston Celtics one bit, unless it's going to take a little bit off of Wick Grousbeck's out of his keep a little bit more into his wallet, I should say, because in reality, it's going to make the Celtics a team that I would imagine is one of the 8 out of the 30 teams that made a profit. It's going to stop them from signing guys like Jermaine O'Neal and Rasheed Wallace, and instead they're going to have to go to guys for cheaper salaries, such as Kwame Brown. Guys like that. Without the MLE, they probably couldn't have got Jermaine O'Neal or Rasheed Wallace. Granted, neither of those guys did light the world on fire during their time with the Boston Celtics, but they were better additions than some of the guys that we could have got without the MLE. So I think it's going to hurt the Celtics. It's going to be better for the other teams like the Indianas, Torontos, David Audley, and teams like that really don't even need to take advantage of the MLE because their salary cap is so low.
Right. Yeah, I know. I kind of agree. I mean, I guess it's opening the floodgates to be a bit more fair amongst the lower echelon teams, rating them up against teams with lots of money, the major market teams. So I think ultimately the MLE, the mid-level exception, seems to be reserved for veteran players. I mean, it's not the same as the vets minimum, but it seems like players that are, over the plateau of their prime. So really at that point, most players are going to kind of choose where they want to go, players that are going to want to win a championship. So I don't know that it affects us either way.
Yeah, but at the same time, if it's lower, how much less is a guy like Jermaine O'Neal going to take? Granted, Jermaine was on the decline with his career when we signed him, but at the same time, he's still a pretty good player with a good past history that raised his value to the MLE of a little over $6 million a year. His contract was a little over $12 million for 2 years. So. I think it is going to take away from the Celtics, but at the same time, it is going to make competition a lot fairer. I mean, you may not see just the Celtics atop the Atlantic Division anymore. It may allow teams like Toronto, New York, teams like that to compete with the Celtics more, because if the MLE did in fact decrease, we don't even know the details yet as far as how much it decreased or the length of the contracts that they're going to limit that to for the mid-level exception. But you have to just imagine with the owners demanding that that may be one of the things that the owners are going to get their way with the new CBA.
Brandon, I often wonder, and this is kind of off the topic slightly, I wonder how I don't even know how to word this really. I wonder, you and I obviously, and I would think a lot of the listeners of this show are very hardcore basketball fans. We follow the NBA. We're following, the negotiations as closely as we can. The average NBA listener or reader or watcher, listen to me, the average NBA viewer is not necessarily going to understand what bird rights are, what the MLE is, what the vets minimum is. And I'm wondering if all this nonsense is really, really taking away from the brand. I mean, we're all worried about when the NBA season is going to start, but at this point, the average fan has to be so goofed up.
It is, and that's probably the best point I've ever heard you make on this show, by the way.
Oh, well, thanks.
Because I was just going to go there, that's why. But I mean, really, people who don't
Go ahead. I know they're going to be gone.
People who don't get this far into it is people like us and other diehards out there, the people in the chat room. But just your casual NBA fan right now, there's no news. I mean, your casual fan that just watches the game, they don't care about the mid-level exception, non-bird rights, the new CBA. They just want to see basketball played. And without basketball being played, they're going to get discouraged. And I really think if there is a postponement to the season, that the NBA is going to lose a lot of what it has gained over the past couple of years or so as far as ratings and the number of fans that watch the game. So I totally agree with what you were saying for once in my life.
Yeah, we don't want to make a habit of that. This show might get real boring real quick if we start agreeing on everything. But Brandon, the point is, and I've made it on this show, I've made it on other shows that I've appeared on. Really, the scary thing is we are training the consumer to deal with a condensed schedule if it does get condensed. We're training the consumer that's already skeptical on the length of the season. Is the season too long? How many people say the regular season doesn't even matter? How many people say the first, second, and third quarter of a game doesn't matter? So, all these things really go towards hurting the brand, the NBA as a business, and it's just bad business. Brandon, let's take one more commercial break. We're going to come back in 2 minutes with Art Rondeau. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
This is CLNS Radio, the home of Internet Sports Talk Radio.
Hey, sports fans, Tim Donaghy here from the Sports Connection. I know the NBA better than anybody. That's why you need to call 1-800-308-9003 for today's free pick.
Thanks a lot, Timmy D. It's been a great year. Thanks to you. Guys, this is Danny D. Make sure you pick up that phone like Tim says. Give us a call for today's free pick at 308-9003 or visit us at DannyBasandBoy.info.
Mike Mackey here, host of Crunch Time with Mac Attack, the show giving you all the news and updates in the sports week, airing live every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on CLNSradio.com. For the next 5 weeks, Crunch Time with Mac Attack is partnering up with our friends at the popular website BustedTees.com to give away a free t-shirt code to one lucky caller each show for the next 5 weeks. BustedTees.com is one of the most well-known shirt designing companies on the web today. And even if you don't win the free shirt, everyone is a winner. Because when you head over to the Crunch Time with Mac Attack show page on CLNSradio.com and you find the Busted Tees logo in the advertisement section, you will also find yourself a coupon code to be used on the site. So tune in to Crunch Time with Mac Attack, Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, live on CLNSradio.com for your chance to win a free shirt with free shipping and handling from BustedTees.com. You don't want to miss out on this one.
This is your boy Delonte West, and you're listening to CLNS Radio.
So, Pete Paul, who's your favorite to win the NBA title next season?
Come on, Jelt. So is that a serious question? The big three coming back. Rondo's healthy. It's obviously going to be the Boston Celtics.
Wow, you really do wear green goggles, don't you?
Well, Nick, I may. But thanks to the expanded broadcast schedule here on CLNS Radio, I've been able to expand my horizons outside of the color green.
That is true, Brandon. Here at CLNS Radio, we don't just broadcast Boston Celtics talk. We have programs such as The Breakdown with Dave and Audley, Off the Court with Calvin Chamberlain and Luciana Celestine, Technically Speaking with former NBA official Tim Donaghy and Mike Munger, the Scotsman, NBA for Life, and the new Mike T.
Check out the broadcast schedule at www.clnsradio.com and listen in live for all your sport talk news.
With all this general NBA programming, this helps people like you see more than just the color green.
As my good friend Kermit once said,
it's not that easy being green, having to spend each day the color of the leaves.
This is Austin Ames. You're listening to the Celtic Late Night Show on CLNS Radio.
Hey, this is Sam Romanella from K&M All-Star Sports. You listen to the Celtics Late Night Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Celtics Late Night Show, broadcasting live on www.clnsradio.com. We're now joined by our special guest for this evening, Art Rondeau, contributor to SheridanHoops.com. Art had a terrific article written today on SheridanHoops.com with a temporary solution for the NBA lockout. Art, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
Well, let's get right to the point here. You had the article today on SheridanHoops.com, Art Rondeau's stop-gap solution to the NBA lockout, and you presented a plan in that piece to end the NBA lockout, a temporary plan to get them to play a full NBA season this year. So I just have to ask you first, what is your stance on the NBA lockout?
Well, I think that things have gotten a little nasty. I think things have dragged out a little bit too long. I also agree that, fans, there are a lot of fans that are knowledgeable, but there are a lot of fans that don't understand a lot of this and just see two, rich sides fighting. And I do think that getting back to playing basketball is going to be a lot better for the sport.
Well, prior to you coming on the show, we were having a discussion regarding the fan base of the NBA and whether this is going to hurt the casual fan from tuning in. Do you think that's the case? Do you believe even though their players, the owners, may have to give back 1 or 2%, that it's going to ultimately hurt them if they don't play the season because they're going to lose out on that revenue from these fans that may turn away?
Yeah, I think particularly in markets where they're not selling out all the time. I know that the Celtics are pretty much filling the Fleet Center, shows you how long I've been away from Boston. The TD Bank North Center is pretty much capacity every game, and the Lakers, same thing. But smaller venues where they're not filling it up all the time, there are going to be people who just don't want to go because they got tired of all this. And they don't understand it. Maybe they're not working, or they've had to take cuts to keep working, and they're seeing a bunch of rich people fighting, and they don't understand it. They'll walk away.
Well, in your piece that you wrote on Sheridan Hoops, you do suggest that the owners let the players have the 53% of basketball-related income that the players are willing to go with for 1 year in an attempt to play a full season. Do you believe by giving in to the players and letting them have that 53%, do you believe the owners would lose any power for future negotiations if they were to have to go through another thing like this next season?
Well, I think basically what I'm looking at is keeping both sides with their big leverage. So obviously the owners have canceling games, which cost players paychecks, and the big leverage for the union really is decertifying and going to court, which you hear some people pro and some people con on. So by giving the 53%, it needs to be made clear to everybody that it's not a commitment by the owners to keep doing that, and it's not a commitment to the players to keep doing it either. What it does, though, is it addresses the short-term issue of the $300 million in losses that the NBA claimed for last year, and allows the league to get going again. There's been a lot of articles showing the math and saying, you cancel 2 weeks of the season and you're already costing yourself more than you would if you just agreed on the 50-50 split. So that's the goal. Definitely not to put the owners in position of, well, you paid us 53 last year, so you're going to have to pay us 53 again this year. This is just we finally got an agreement on one thing that the players are coming down to. Let's go with that, cut back on the losses, play the games, and then get back to the table.
Hoops fans, you're listening to the Celtics Late Night Show right here live on CLNSradio.com. We're live with Art Rondeau. Art, I got to ask you a question here. For the passionate NBA fans such as ourselves, will you explain decertification?
Yes, the decertification basically is that the union stops being a union, and I'm kind of probably in the middle of knowledge on this, a little more than the casual fan, but not as much as some of the attorneys that have been commenting. But basically what it allows them to do is take the NBA to court. If they decertify the union, they take the NBA to court, and I believe it's an unfair labor practice case, because then the lockout is not legal at that point. So, obviously the only way they can do that is if there is a lockout, which we have right now.
Well, Art, I have to ask you. You proposed this temporary solution, which is fantastic. I just have to ask you, say that this is something they did go towards, they did agree to this, what you're proposing. Do you think that this would cause a distraction for the upcoming season? I mean, at the same time they're playing the games, but they also have it in the back of their mind that next season they're going to have to do this again. They're going to have to get to a better deal. Do you think that would cause any distractions? Would it maybe cause any unhealthy relationships between players and owners just with a temporary deal?
Sure, that's a great question. I think there's two parts to the idea. One of them is to get the games going now, but also to have negotiations continue. Probably have to have them out in LA during Laker homestands, because Derek Fisher's so much a part of this. But with the goal of having this all resolved before the end of the season. But the second part, and this was to keep the leverage for both the owners and the players, is that they pick a date and they agree now to a lockout beginning. I think I picked August 16th for the date, and that would allow Summer League to take place. And since if there is a lockout, teams can't work with their players, they can't go to rehab, stuff like that. Anybody that got injured during Summer League, the team could set them up with the appropriate physical therapists and doctors. And then the lockout goes back into effect on the 16th of August. The reason to have the lockout go back is that ensures that the union could decertify and go to court if they wanted to. So their leverage is protected. And ideally, they're going to be close enough today. We'd all like to see it just end today. But if it doesn't, they seem to be close enough that there are just a few things to resolve. And this would give them the time to do it without the drop dead, Monday close of business, whatever time they're going to close business today, before they cancel 2 weeks of the season.
Well, I do like your optimism, and actually a lot of the writers on Sheridan Hoops, including Chris Sheridan, have all been very optimistic through this process, where some of the other media sources are just not thinking anything's going to get done, that we're just going to be out of an NBA season. But you guys, including yourself and Chris, you guys have been very optimistic, so it's definitely good to get that point of view. Moving on here, you mentioned the 53-47 split of basketball-related income between players and owners. Do you think that would help eliminate the financial losses that the owners are reporting? I believe it went from $380 to $300 last season, the $380 million to $300 million. Do you think the additional 3% or 4% would help them eliminate these losses and maybe make them realize they don't need to go any lower as far as that goes?
That's very possible, and particularly the fact that the owners really do need to do something on revenue sharing, and that's coming soon. But that's going to take care of a lot of the issue as well, and that could be one sticking point. And it's why I said they're not locked into 53 going in further seasons if they do have to implement what I'm suggesting, but. The owners want to make a profit, and there's nothing wrong with that. And the players are the reason that people are showing up, and they want to make their money, and there's nothing wrong with that either. It's just a matter of, having some kind of agreement where the fans can win as well, and getting the season going is going to do that.
The last of the first 2 weeks of the regular season, with that 3% loss of basketball-related income, the loss of preseason, then the first 2 weeks. Doesn't that kind of negate any victory, quote unquote, that these labor negotiations are trying to achieve anyway?
I think so. I believe that if they want to really say, they did a great job with the negotiations, and David Stern wants to be able to have that as his legacy, and certainly Billy Hunter as well, then I think they've got to figure out a way to make it happen without canceling the games. They had in 98-99 season, they locked out for the first, I guess they started, mid-January, and the basketball wasn't very good, and they were playing sometimes 3 nights in a row, so more injuries and certainly a lower quality of basketball. If they can figure out a way to get it done today, that would be ideal, and I think that everybody can declare victory at that point.
Are Steve Nash, Jared Dudley on social media, on Twitter, really downgrading, bad-mouthing the owners? In my opinion, not productive. What are your thoughts? Does it have any bearing whatsoever?
Well, certainly, like Steve Nash, a lot of people respect Steve, and he's got quite a following on Twitter, I know, and I've seen some of the tweets he's posted there. They've got their opinion. I don't have the kind of insider knowledge, obviously, that they do. I do think that both sides probably have been posturing a little bit, and sometimes they've had to do it just in response to something that's happened, that the other side has done. I was really negative about the demand for, the 50-50 split before they were even going to have a meeting on Monday, because I thought even if the players had decided they were going to go for 50-50, they couldn't accept that, the precondition, that it would have been a very bad negotiating move for them to do so. And, there's been stuff on either side, I think, that the other side could say, well, that's not the best thing that they could have said, and, we've got to defend ourselves. But ultimately, it's the guys in the room that know what's going on, and, we'll see what they come out with.
Well, some of the guys, you mentioned the guys in the room. Obviously, Derek Fisher is in there. Paul Pierce has been being was being seen at the meetings, as well as Dwayne Wade, who supposedly got in a confrontation with David Stern. So I have to ask you, and I actually brought this up on Twitter earlier, do you think if there was younger guys that haven't really secured a lot of contracts yet, a lot of paychecks, do you think that if there was younger guys that were making this deal, that we would have come to a resolution now instead of guys like Kobe Bryant, Derek Fisher, guys that are probably already set for life and as far as the financial aspect goes? Do you think it'd help if maybe younger players were in there and maybe they wouldn't stand as strong as these older guys are?
Well, I think that that's a really great point, and the people that this deal is going to affect the most are going to be the younger players that end up having a long career, and they don't have the resources right now like Kobe does to say, okay, well, we'll see you next year and you can let us know what you're thinking. Certainly some of these like Dwayne Wade and Kobe have been talking about financing guys that needed support during the lockout and things like that, and the younger players don't have that. I don't know if it would be a matter of them not standing as strong, but I do think that from their point of view, they need to be playing and getting game checks as soon as possible, and so we might very well have seen a little bit more movement earlier.
Well, another point here with the mid-level exception, I mean, they supposedly came to a deal today with that. I'm not sure. They didn't really say which way it went, how much the owners got back on that, if they got exactly what they wanted. But let's say they did get what they wanted. Do you think getting things like that is going to shouldn't that be giving a little bit of leeway and make up some of the difference in some of the disagreement they're having in regards to the most important issue being the basketball-related income and the split of the basketball-related income?
Absolutely. I think that what's happening now, the remaining issues, and that some of these have been called system issues, like the luxury tax and the mid-level exception and things like that. If the union's going to get a little more of what they want in those things, and they're going to come down somewhat in the BRI. Now, I don't know how much. They've been on Twitter. There's been a hashtag says 51.5, and that's a nice difference between 50 and 53, but I can't say that the owners are going to buy into that. But if the players are going to give back more than they've already given, then they need to make it up in some of these other areas. And that was one of the reasons that the precondition couldn't be accepted, is because not only was the BRI the biggest issue on the table, it was also their biggest bargaining chip. If they're going to get concession in the mid-level, let's say, they're going to have to say, well, okay, yeah, we'll come down another 0.5% on the BRI, but we want this in return for it. So I think what's left is like this package of things that will be negotiated, and then they'll all be on the table, and then all resolved at the same time.
Yes, definitely. There will definitely have to be a lot of give and take there with different issues. And then also, like you said, if they're going to give a little on the mid-level, they should give a little back with the basketball-related income. But moving on here to another issue that really isn't an owner/player issue. It's more of an owner versus owner issue, and that's the increased revenue sharing that is probably going to be discussed for the new CBA. I believe they said $60 million was split up in revenue sharing last year. Do you believe increasing that would hurt the business aspect of the league and almost encourage failure and bad contracts? I mean, really, teams like the Celtics, shouldn't they be rewarded for the way that they're managing their teams instead of having to dish out the revenue sharing to other teams that maybe aren't getting themselves as good of contracts as the Boston Celtics?
Well, I do think that it has an impact certainly on teams like the Celtics that have gotten their act together and had it together for a long time, and filling the seats. One challenge that I've seen in the last agreement, and I actually put a proposal together, put it on my blog site a couple of weeks ago, was that when you have fixed salaries, as fixed dollar amounts, but you've got variable revenue, you're heading for disaster. And so if you've got somebody in a small market that's got to pay a top person, say $15 million a year, but somebody gets injured, or they can't charge the same amount of money for tickets that they can in Boston or New York or LA, then you've got less revenue, but you still got a very fixed expense. I mean, this is you name the business. We've probably seen this with airlines and card manufacturers and all this over the years as there've been union management negotiations. And so from that standpoint, I had felt that they should go to a share system and everybody gets shares of 50,000 each, let's say, per share, but then the share price actually gets determined based on the BRI at the end of the year. And so if they had a great year and they brought in the fans, they get more money. If they didn't have a great year, they're going to get a little bit less, but they're still making a bundle. I think that some of the revenue sharing is needed just because of logistics and the fact that they pay the fixed dollar amounts in contracts. I do think you have to be careful, though, that you're not rewarding bad management and things like that, because you're right, it's very easy to do that. In fact, now that they've got investment groups that are buying from teams like Detroit, et cetera, you don't have everybody maybe on the same page with the goal of being, the best team we can be. Sometimes it's got to maybe be how much profit can we make this year, period. And so, even suggesting, although I don't know if it goes into a CBA deal, I'm suggesting that the league have a mandatory minimum that they spend on coaches and a minimum that they spend on the basketball operations group. They certainly can spend more than that, but you don't want, some team bringing in, a junior high school assistant coach who may someday be, NBA ready, but they'll bring him in because he'll work for $100K, whereas anybody with NBA experience is going to want a couple of million. You can make profits that way, but it's going to hurt the basketball, and you got to keep the product at a high level.
Art, I got to tell you, really interesting insights on the lockout. You're obviously a man that's close to the information, close to the topics. You've also done some really interesting work outside of the lockout, and I was really interested in seeing that you'd work with players like Chris Dudley and Allen Houston as far as some sports psychology, work on free throw shooting, field goal percentage. Could you give us a little bit of your insights into how that works out, that part of our aspect of your career?
Certainly. Well, the free throw program is really mostly a physical thing, about 90% physical, and I figured it out when I was 17, actually. There are reasons other than the angle of your shooting arm that cause most free throws to be missed. And so what happened was just through a whole bunch of coincidences, I happened to get some information. I was able to figure it out and figured, I'm 17, so obviously the NBA knows this, and I didn't do much with it. And then probably 10 years later, I got sick of watching free throws getting bricked. And in fact, I remember I was in Rhode Island at the time, and I started looking. No, I was in Boston at the time, and I remember Greg Kite just bricking them like
Greg
mad.
Kite,
I've got
oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of
You're
showing
making
my
us
age
all
here.
older. Yeah, we're showing our age here, Greg Kite.
But what I found was happening, I started working with college players and trying to get an NBA gig, and I found that these guys we'd improve them right away. They might be 40% free throw shooters, and then all of a sudden in about a week to 10 days, we'd get them up to 70, 75, 80%. And they'd stay there, and then after maybe a month or so, they'd start to decline. And if I looked at game film, I'd see that they were doing things that were in their control, and that was causing them to miss. Like, maybe they had a routine that had a 4-dribble, start before they took the free throw. They might, do a 3-dribble start. Well, that's going to mess them up a little bit. Or they might, hurry the shot. You look and see that they were taking 8 seconds, and now all of a sudden, for some reason, they're taking 6. And when I talk to them, I say, what's going on? And they'd say, well, I'm only a 50% free throw shooter. Well, that's a belief about who they were, and they were living into that. So I started looking around to see if there was a way that I could help them change their beliefs, and through another whole series of flukes, ended up watching a Tony Robbins infomercial because a drunk called his girlfriend, misdialed the number, and woke me up in the middle of the night with the TV still on. And I got the tapes and then went to the program and said, wow, this stuff is it's very powerful stuff that he's working with. It's based on neurolinguistic programming, or NLP, which is very big over in Europe, but not so much over here right now. And so I started kind of playing around with that to see certainly I could do more than free throws, and I found that I could help players that were in slumps get out of the slumps, usually in a session or two. And it works with, so far, any sport. I've done it with pro golf, pro tennis, NBA, a lot of Division I and Division III basketball players. I've got a U.S. national team fencer, World Cup skier, and most of these are sports that I don't play. I played basketball a while ago, so I've got some knowledge on that. But these are elite athletes. They've had the proper training, so it's in there. It's just a matter of there are certain circumstances that keep them from performing their best. And, we hear about players going into their zone or whatever they're calling it at the time, but usually a mental zone is what we know it as. And they usually don't know why they got there. And so what my program does is allows them to get there on a game-by-game basis. And so instead of seeing, somebody shooting 70% one night and then 30, 40, 45, and then, maybe a 50 after that, we can get them if they're capable of shooting 70, and we probably have them, in high 50s, low 60s on a night-to-night basis. It's their talent, their training. They've got, they're doing all the things they need to do as far as working out and nutrition and all that. It's just a matter of putting them into that zone instead of having them wander into it.
Absolutely fascinating. This is Art Rondeau. Art, we really appreciate your time, and just in case the other Rondeau, Rajan, is listening to this show, how could the listeners find your work? We know Rajan needs work with his free throws. Maybe he'll look you up. How can we find your work?
Well, I've got a website about to be redone, but it's artrondeau.com. That's ARTRONDEAU.com. And on Twitter, I'm at Art Rondeau, and off that, I've got my blog. If you get to my Twitter account, you get my blog site and see some of the things that are going on there as well.
Excellent stuff, man. We really appreciate your time. Your insights on the lockout were fascinating, and even more fascinating, talking about getting in the zone. Less fundamental work, more, it sounds like, more mental work.
A lot of it is. Once you put in the time and the reps with your, with your physical skills, then it's just a matter of making sure you're using them at the right time. So.
All right, Art, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate you joining us. Everybody, make sure to check out Art Rondeau's work. You got his Twitter handle. You got his site. We appreciate his time. Brandon, what great stuff, man. I mean, fascinating. I was kind of like, I was getting in a zone there.
Yeah, you were in a zone. And I think another guy that maybe should head over to one of Art's websites or follow his Twitter account is Big Baby Davis, because we know how he can get out of the zone very quickly. He could definitely use Art's help.
Where is Glenn?
Glenn's
I just can't find Glenn. I'm just being Glenn. I can't find Glenn. I really hope we don't have to deal with him this year.
I think Glenn's going to be the new Rashid. He's going to be talking
I'm going to have to pull. He's going to talk about. Well, I'll tell you what. In 2009, we beat up on Rashid something fierce, a craziness. Honestly, I guess it's a depressing thing, but it's crazy, Brandon. In the host chat, we're kind of Skyping back and forth to one another while Art is telling us a lot of these labor disputes and whatnot. I can remember back in 2009 talking about the looming lockout in 2011. Even last season, Brandon, I mean, we mentioned it frequently, but, I don't think we thought it was real. But when you're listening, or, it was really going to happen. But when you're listening to a gentleman like Art Rondeau break it down, and really when you're talking about breaking down, I need, my brother's an attorney. I needed him here to kind of translate a lot of that stuff. You're talking about really technical business bullshit, mainly. I mean, the NBA fans don't want to hear it.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. It's just so you have to just read into it like 100 times. You have to read multiple articles, look up multiple definitions to even begin to understand what these two sides are going against each other in regards to, I mean, the mid-level exception and basketball-related income and then revenue sharing. There's just all this stuff, and you really, like you said, the casual fan is not going to put in the time to learn about this stuff and be involved with the league when they're not playing games. Exactly.
Nor should they have to. I mean, really, the only person that loses here is the fan. I mean, we will talk about who's to blame here, I guess, kind of go back and forth. I don't know if we agree or not. We'll do that shortly. But in all actuality, yes, the owners deserve to turn a profit. Any business owner does. The players deserve to earn an income. But we're all talking about sports here. We're talking about fans, getting together and watching the sport they love, and that's who's losing. That's who's losing out. That, and unfortunately, the concession stand workers and the guys who pull the tickets at the TD Garden. The little guys who are out there. How many people right now are going to go into late October where they normally would be starting their work schedule, Brandon? And there's no games going on at the TD Garden. There's no games going on at the Staples Center, and that's a shame for the working class people of this country, even a country that's already economically depressed or repressed.
Yeah, and it's not just in the building either. I mean, you walk outside of the TD Garden and you see all the restaurants, the bars. They're going to lose out big time with this. If there's not an NBA game played, who are they going to get at 10 o'clock at night when normally a Boston Celtics game would be just getting over? People would be going out, grabbing a bite to eat or going to have a beer or whatever.
A couple Patrons, man. Come on, hitting the booze, baby. It's sports.
So
you want to watch your favorite team win and you want to go out and celebrate at the bar. Well, guess what?
No more.
Not going to be happening. It doesn't look like it's in the near future. We'll find out tonight. And one thing we should have probably asked Art was, what time does he feel they'll stop the negotiating tonight? I mean, what time do you think, Brandon? Is there a cutoff?
Well, they stopped around midnight last night, I believe it was, because I was planning on staying up as long as I had to, because really a meeting was not planned for either today or yesterday. The players' unions was actually was going to be meeting in Los Angeles today by themselves to meet up, and instead they're there. So, I mean, if they took the time to do these two meetings unscheduled at the last minute, you'd have to think they're going to try pushing it. I'm not sure if it's going to be enough time. We can only hope, but there's also a lot of talk out there that David Stern may push the cutoff date to tomorrow to allow a little more time for negotiations.
Jeez, it's funny because earlier over the weekend I was uploading Wednesday's episode where we had Sherrod Blakely from Comcast Sportsnet New England on, also had great insights on the lockout, what's going on around Boston. I was uploading that episode to YouTube, but I got curious and I just went back this time last season, Brandon, and here we were, bitching about the summer of LeBron, the decision, and talking about, training camp and so many other exciting issues that NBA fans are now, this time of year really anticipating, and there's none of that. It's all labor disputes.
And here's the other thing. I'll get this in real quick before the next commercial break. I mean, once this does get settled, the players and the teams are maybe going to have 10 days to 2 weeks to get everything situated, and they're just going to go right at it. So that's another thing. When this does get resolved, we are going to be overwhelmed with news. Updates on Garnett. What shape is Garnett in? How's Ray Allen doing? And, I mean, look at all the empty roster spots the Celtics are going to have. We'll be talking about that a little more and some potential targets later in the show. But, I mean, it's going to be a lot of news what they do, when and if they do get this resolved, that are just going to come at the fans and at us media members all at once. And it's definitely going to be overwhelming.
Good point. And, that in itself is going to be an exciting time. I mean, I don't know about you, Brandon, but being silent all summer long has kind of grated on me. And it's possible that when the news starts flowing out, maybe we'll do a show every night. Actually, I don't know if there's enough room on the broadcast schedule.
I think with the jam-packed broadcast schedule, I'm not sure if that would be possible. But, I mean, it's definitely going to be exciting and definitely overwhelming, like I said, once that does get resolved and we do see some players signing is there's going to be updates of everyone, players coming to training camp. They're probably going to have to announce a few preseason games, I would imagine. I don't think they'd go busting right into the regular season. So a lot of news set to come when and if this does get resolved.
All right, folks, you're listening to the Celtics Late Night Show. We are live right here on CLNSradio.com. The call lines are open. We're talking about a condensed NBA season. Well, we're on a condensed schedule tonight, too. Scheduled for 120 minutes. We'll probably only go about 90 minutes. So we're going to open the call lines now. 347-215-7771. We'll get to your calls immediately following this commercial break.
CLNSradio.com, the home of Internet Sports Talk Radio.
Hey, sports fans, Tim Donaghy here from the Sports Connection. I know the NBA better than anybody. That's why you need to call 1-800-308-9003 for today's free pick.
Thanks a lot, Timmy D. It's been a great year. Thanks to you. Guys, this is Danny D. Make sure you pick up that phone like Tim said. Give us a call for today's free pick at 1-800-308-9003 or visit us at DannyBasandBoy.info.
Mike Mackey here, host of Crunch Time with Mac Attack, the show giving you all the news and updates in the sports week, airing live every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on CLNSradio.com. For the next 5 weeks, Crunch Time with Mac Attack is partnering up with our friends at the popular website BustedTees.com to give away a free t-shirt code to one lucky caller each show for the next 5 weeks. BustedTees.com is one of the most well-known shirt designing companies on the web today. And even if you don't win the free shirt, everyone is a winner. Because when you head over to the Crunch Time with Mac Attack show page on CLNSradio.com and you find the Busted Tees logo in the advertisement section, you will also find yourself a coupon code to be used on the site. So tune in to Crunch Time with Mac Attack, Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, live on CLNSradio.com for your chance to win a free shirt with free shipping and handling from BustedTees.com. You don't want to miss out on this one.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Celtics Late Night Show, live right here on CLNSradio.com. Right here you hear Break My Stride playing in the background. Well, unfortunately, what Brandon Paul is telling me right now, it is breaking my stride, B. Paul. What did you just hear on Twitter?
Well, the first 2 weeks of the NBA regular season are officially canceled by Commissioner David Stern. After meetings, hours and hours of meetings, Stern stated that they still remain very, very far apart on virtually all issues, and first 2 weeks are officially canceled.
All right, folks, you heard it first right here on CLNSradio.com, the Celtics Late Night Show. Depressing, Brandon, upsetting. 347-215-7771. Give us a ring. Get your frustrations out. Folks, we are not seeing basketball at this point, at least until mid-November, Brandon. Mid-November.
That is correct. First 2 weeks are canceled, and it doesn't seem like the way that I'm seeing stuff pop up on Twitter from Adrian Wojnarowski from Yahoo, Chris Mannix from Sports Illustrated, all of their quotes are pretty depressing. There's nothing really to remain optimistic about, considering how Stern is stating we have a gulf that separates us. So, I mean, with those type of quotes from the commissioner, you can't really remain optimistic.
Yeah,
and I guess I left you speechless.
I mean, this is not good, folks. I guess not, Brandon. No, you actually we're breaking up a little bit here. Can you hear me?
I can now. Yes,
Brandon.
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's depressing. Yeah, this is like a Verizon commercial. Can you hear me now? It's depressing. It's upsetting. It's not 100% unexpected, folks. We knew that there would be problems here. I mean, the last couple episodes, technically speaking, with Donaghy, the callers that have called into the show, as well as Tim's insights going with labor disputes, he's looking at January, Brandon. Do you think we're going that far, January, until we see an NBA game? We're already at mid-November now.
Well, I mean, there's no reason to think it's not going to be until January. I mean, I tried to be one that was optimistic, but from seeing these tweets that are coming out with what David Stern is saying, it just seems like they're sitting in that room accomplishing absolutely nothing. Both sides are just sticking to their guns, not giving an inch, and that's not what it's going to take to get it resolved. I mean, you can be very, very apart on all issues and expect a resolution to be made soon. I thought they were.
Hoops fans, I'm just going to say this now, Hoops fans. I mean, you put a Los Angeles Laker at the top or at the head of the Players Association. We can't guarantee anything with Brandon. I sound like Scotty.
It's ridiculous. It really is.
It has nothing to do. Derek Fisher's a good guy. I mean, this is upsetting. Brandon, who do you blame? The owners or the players?
I was on the side of wanting to blame the owners at first, but the more I've seen from the players coming out just in being greedy, I mean, none of these guys are going to end up on the streets. They're going to still be able to provide a home for their family. And at what other place of employment do the employees see 50% of income that is generated? I mean, let's be real here. 57% in the past CBA was just ridiculous, completely out of control for employees to be receiving more percentage of income than the actual owners of the company. So I really think at this point I'm starting to side with the owners. The owners have shown their willingness to negotiate, and the players are not really backing off their stance. They're staying 53%. The owners are willing to give 50. Like Art said, a 51.5 or something around there would probably get work for most anyone, but no one's giving an inch. I do blame both parties, but I'm starting to side more with the owners than I was originally.
I've always been on the side of the owners. To me, a business needs to turn a profit. That's why you're there, at least to break even. We're not in the boom times, the 90s, when you had these ultra-wealthy I mean, these guys are still ultra-wealthy, let's face it. But when they were needing to have a tax write-off, which is a lot of times what these sports teams were write-offs and whatnot for these guys, this is a real business, folks. And unfortunately, like we stated earlier, only the fans really suffer from this. And this is a real shame. Real shame, Brandon. It's a sad thing that really, I mean, right now we're talking about breaking news on this show, and it's about a work stoppage and part of our season being canceled. Get pissed off, NBA fans. I mean, I don't know what else to say, B-Paul.
It's nothing but frustrations, and we want to hear from the fans because, I mean, I know we're fans and we're pretty pissed off. So give us a call, 347-215-7771. I mean, obviously no one's happy, but who do you blame? The players, the owners, both sides? Is this the 2 weeks being canceled going to affect how much you watch the league in the future? Is it going to change your opinion? We want to hear from you. Again, it's 347-215-7771. Give us a call.
Very rare that the call lines here on the Celtics Late Night Show are silent. And knowing from our audience levels that there are people out there listening, we understand the frustration. We are somewhat speechless as well. Not unexpected, not a total shock, but definitely a disappointment, heart-wrenching type situation for Hoops fans. And Brandon, I mean, let's not forget, I mean, I don't want to push against women in sports and whatnot. I can't watch the WNBA. That's not an alternative for me. However, NCAA basketball, college hoops is starting up. I mean, are we going to start covering college hoops?
That is exactly where I'm going to be going. The WNBA is actually, I believe their season is wrapping up now, or it already has.
It's over, yeah.
It is over. So
I don't even know. I can't even tell you who won the championship. Please, women, don't kill me.
Yeah, I think it may have been Minnesota. I know Minnesota or Atlanta, but yeah, let's move on. But no, I think the NCAA as a whole is going to benefit the most out of all of this. Any hoops fans, when you're a basketball fan, you want to see basketball. Granted, the NBA is the highest level of professional basketball. It's the best league in the entire world when they're in action. But without that, I think the second best option is the NCAA. And I also think, regardless of the talent level being a little less than what you would see in the NBA, I think the NBA D-League is going to see some benefits from this. And I think people are going to pay more attention to the D-League, where they're not going to be able to just flick on their TV and watch a professional basketball game. Teams like the Maine Red Claws, people are going to head out and watch those types of games live in person.
Fact of the matter is, a lot of people in the sporting world talk about how the NFL, too much money at stake to lose games. Granted, this season is considerably smaller than MLB or NBA. But the point is, Brandon, yes, American football is the most popular sport in this country, but worldwide, basketball certainly trumps that. The NBA certainly trumps the NFL.
Well, I don't know if I want to go that far. I'm not the biggest NFL fan, but I almost would be willing to say there's probably more NFL fans out there than NBA fans.
No way.
You don't think so?
No, not worldwide. Not worldwide. Absolutely not. Not worldwide.
I
would say soccer, European football trumps NFL. I mean, there ain't no way. I mean, the NFL is huge in this country; it's ginormous. But if you look at it worldwide, from a worldwide audience, the NBA trumps the NFL, maybe just in China alone.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I just think the NFL, obviously, in our country, it's the premier sporting league. It's probably get the highest ratings, so on and so forth. But as far as worldwide, you do make a good point with China. But with Yao Ming, I mean, with him being pretty much gone now out of the league, I'm sure they're probably going to lose some interest.
How about the former Soviet countries, Croatia, Germany? I mean, even Germany, that's not part of the Soviet. But I mean, you're looking at worldwide. The basketball is has a much larger audience. We're getting off topic here, Brandon, and the point really is that there's no excuse for this. A lot of people are disappointed. A lot of people are out of work, and it's just a shame when you're talking about these people are squabbling over 1.5 or 2 points, when they're already making millions and millions and millions of dollars. Brandon, I don't know about you. I'm ready to wrap.
Well, I mean, if you're ready, I'm surprised really the call lines aren't filling up here with callers. So, I mean, if you want to wrap, we can wrap the show. It's been a strong, solid hour.
Honestly, Brandon, it has been. I want to tune into the blog on CLNS Radio and see what's getting posted right now by our writing staff. I'm certain it's getting flooded with content. It better be. So, Brandon, this is episode 91 of the Celtics Late Night Show. And really, I think a record beat, Paul. We've never had a show without a caller, I don't think. So, really, NBA fans are silent, maybe speechless, definitely disappointed. Add B. Paul and myself to that category. We are all of the above. Well, we got a job to do starting immediately following this show, Brandon. We're off to work, posting content on the site that's relevant to the upsetting news we just heard.
Definitely. The blog will be the place to go, clnsradio.com, all the breaking news. I'm sure we'll have a lot. Speaking of
breaking, we just got a caller.
We did.
I think it's the odd man.
They heard us.
Oddly, you're live, man. I mean, give us some hoops talk the way it should be, man. We were just ready to wrap. This is just, like I said to B. Paul, it's not shocking, not surprising, but it doesn't make it any less disappointing. What are your thoughts?
I'd say disgusting. I'd add another word to that. It is absolutely disgusting, guys. I mean, it's the one thing you would have expected these guys meaning Stern and the players to come together and not have happen. Now you're losing NBA games now, and the last thing you want is apathy to set in, and that's exactly what's going to happen. At this point, no one cares whose fault it is once you start losing games, and they're both held to blame as far as I'm concerned.
And don't they? I mean, they have to keep the odd some odd man in their thoughts. I mean, look, you're going to be. What are you guys going to do? The NBA, or I shouldn't say the NBA breakdown. The breakdown, an NBA podcast on CLNS Radio. I mean, what are they going to do now?
The show must go on. We're going to keep it moving. There's no doubt about that. It doesn't stop, and we're going to constantly, continually bring hoop content. It might be a bit more challenging, but hey, it's coming nonetheless.
More Manunos? More Manunos?
You'd like to see that, wouldn't you? You'd like to see that. I love it. But The other part about this too, it very well could be because look at it. Stern came out and said they're miles apart. They're way apart. They're nowhere near solving this thing. So clearly 2 weeks isn't enough. I think 2 weeks more is a statement to start cutting into some pockets, or so guys can feel it in their bank accounts a bit, and really it's more so an attempt, I think, to sort of try and break up this whole united stance that the players are trying to take. Because listen, man, when guys start getting affected, guys start panicking, then you're going to see what really comes on. You really see how united people are.
Well, Audley, last time you were on the show, we had a pretty good discussion regarding players going overseas, taking the stance, and you weren't in favor of that, correct?
No, I wasn't because of that same exact reason. I was about unity and taking a stance and a united cause. And when guys start jumping ship and going, well, I'm out of here because I got to get paid, well, that affects the overall position of the argument of the players. So no, I didn't agree with it then, and I still don't.
Well, you haven't seen any major superstars head over there. I mean, Deron Williams, I believe he did get a contract over there, but Kobe's working on it. He hasn't got one yet. How much?
That's not going to happen. Kobe's not going anywhere.
Well, he's in deep talks according to a lot of sources, but
I don't see. Yeah, deep talks and action are two different things.
But you know what, Nick? He'll go over if he doesn't take the Wilson Chandler approach, which is Chandler's stuck over there for the full year, regardless of what happens. Kobe's going to negotiate a clause and he can leave whenever he wants. So I think that's where the difference is, and I can totally see Kobe going. Totally.
But I mean, honestly, as a Lakers fan, and you're not a Lakers fan, but as a Lakers fan, I would be pretty pissed off if my star player verging past his prime with the amount of minutes that guy's had on his legs going over to play over in Europe. I mean, that would be even more so of a stab than what's going on right now with cutting games out of the schedule. Which I'm not, but if I'm a Lakers fan.
But do you want him just sitting there? I mean, what would he be doing right now?
Working out.
Yes. Nick, you're making an assumption that all this is about the fans. That all what's going on is the fans got nothing to do with this, man. This is about guys trying to get paid. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, but I realize that. But oddly, if no one shows up at the games, let's face it. I mean, the league, the revenue is driven by the fans.
Sure.
So if the fans aren't going to show up, and guaranteed, this is going to be a situation that is not going to be easily remedied as far as from a revenue standpoint or from projecting out year two seasons. There's going to be a ripple effect that comes down from missing games, cutting games. Fans are going to get, if they're not already, even more pissed off.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Guys will get pissed off.
So
fans will get pissed off.
I agree. It's about getting paid, but the fans pay the players.
They do, but you know what? I actually reflect back to a conversation I had. We had George Lopez on a show a while back, and I remember he jokingly, and again, he said it as a joke, but
oddly, I think you hit the mute button on your mic.
Sorry, you there?
That's right. Yes, start that over. You're
there we go.
Lopez.
So, going back to George Lopez, and again, he was jokingly when he put this out there, but when I reflect back on it now, it's so true. And he was just talking about the fact that after the Lakers got swept by the Cavs, he had said, I hope that they suck for a couple of years because guys will give up their tickets in the front row, and I'll snatch them. And I really think that for every fan that disappears, someone else will take their spot. So
at a lesser rate, though, at a lesser rate, don't you think?
I think people still come in there. I think fans there will be someone that takes someone else's spot. So yeah, you're right. Guys get pissed off, but I still think there will be other replacements, if you will.
But the other thing is it's not just ticket sales, it's also merchandise sales. And I know Thirsty Boots in the chat, she was stating earlier she won't be purchasing any basketball-related gear this year. So you're going to be losing money there as well. So it's not just the ticket sales. There's multiple ways that they bring in revenue to the league that quite possibly are going to be lost through all of this.
So the comment was for this year alone? Is that that's where the jersey sales are going to stop? Because they're going to pick up sooner or later. Okay, so they're going to take a bite this year. They're already losing money now. They've lost 2 weeks of the season. Yeah. We're cutting into people's pockets now. Will you see it come back? Yeah, at some point. Look, if baseball can make a return, I mean, the NBA can survive losing 2. Exactly. I mean, the NBA can survive losing 2 weeks. If in fact, as far as it goes.
Oddly, you are the ultimate optimist, and tonight we could call you the ultimate realist. We appreciate your calling, Oddly. Thank you very much for your time, man.
Take care, guys.
Hey, follow him on Twitter. Where do they find you? Wait a minute, Oddly. Where do they find you on Twitter?
I'm the Odd Man, man. That's how AUDMAN, the Odd Man. Check me out.
And that he is. Good night, Oddly. Thanks a lot.
Later, guys. Peace.
Good
Oddly
stuff from
Stevenson,
Oddly.
Man, it never gets better than that. Let's round out tonight's show with another caller. As soon as I said we were going off the air, the call lines filled up. And tonight we have, always deserves a drum roll, the Scotsman. What's going on, sexy Scotsman? What's up? You're pissed.
What's up, guys?
You got to be mad.
Yeah, this sucks, man. I mean, this is stupid. You know, and I can't stress this enough. Everybody out there that doesn't know what side they want to take, or is on the owner's side saying, well, the owners are right, it's a business. Remember this. The owners are the reason that we have this lockout. The players did not lock themselves out. The owners have locked the NBA out. This is not a player-driven strike. The players are not asking for more money. They're not sitting out games saying, hey, we're not going to play unless we get more money. That's not what's going on right now. What's going on is the owners are quite possibly the most ridiculous amount of businessmen that we've ever seen who signed into bad deals and now want the players to bail them out. That's what the owners are looking for. They're looking for a bailout, okay? I mean, people need to remember this and realize that's what's going on right now.
Well, Scotty, I do agree. I mean, they did sign a bad deal with the previous CBA, but at the same time, like I said previously, what employees and at what place of employment do employees receive 57% of income that was brought in? Yes, it was a bad deal, but at the same time, that is just ridiculous. It was a owner-driven lockout. It was not a player-driven lockout, like you stated. The players didn't go on strike wanting more money.
Why would they?
Because it was so ridiculous. Why would they go on strike? They were receiving a ridiculous amount of money, and by going to 50% or 51.5%, no one's going to end up homeless. You're not going to see Paul Pierce in a box next to the TD Garden. You're not even going to see Luke Herringody.
But if he was, wait a minute, if he was, we'd be sure to slip him a card and get him on as a guest on our next show, Brandon, correct?
Oh, definitely.
We'd walk right up to the box.
We'd definitely hand him a couple quarters in the bin.
Wait a minute, Scotty, you'd let him sleep on your couch.
Absolutely. I'd let Avery Bradley sleep on the couch if it came down to it. I don't care. Brian Dew, everybody, I don't care.
Oh, that's funny. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, but
no, you're right.
Like I was saying, it was the owner's fault. They got himself in a bad deal, but the players, they're not just these precious little things that are going to go poor if they give up a couple more percentage points of the basketball-related income. I mean, Steve Nash is sitting there, we're about our future, and same with Jared Dudley, it's about the future. You guys probably have enough in your bank account you wouldn't have to even play another NBA game. So I just don't see why they can't just give up a little bit, get the start of the league going, and let's see some basketball.
And the fact of the matter is, Brandon, any player, Scotty, I'll go to you in a second, any player that has not prepared for this, I mean, we've heard this, like I just said prior to Oddly coming on, we've heard it since 2009, get ready for the lockout. It was starting to grumble then. These players are making millions of dollars. Scotty, you, me, Brandon, we struggle to pay our rent. We're worried about these guys taking a $500,000 pay cut or whatever it's going to be. I mean, come on. Go ahead, Scotty.
But again, I mean, here's the thing, and it seems like a good idea to compare the NBA to a regular business, but it's not. I mean, you can't compare NBA players.
It is a regular business,
but it's not. It's entertainment. These guys are the entertainers. As fans, we pay to see the entertainers go out there and perform to the best of their abilities and hope that they can, give us something special. It's not like guys that work at Kentucky Fried Chicken or Taco Bell. Where they're getting paid hourly wages.
Your point.
I mean, it's completely
I understand
different.
your point, but however, if Francis Ford Coppola is going to put out a new movie, do you think he's going to pay the lead actor more than the movie itself is going to gross or net? I mean, come on, it's still a business.
Yeah, but here's the thing:
Hollywood is a business.
With movies, the owners are prepaid. If you have Nicolas Cage and Angelina Jolie come in, they sign a contract to get paid a certain amount of movies. Say they get paid $20 million each for the movie. The movie bombs and makes $10 million. Well, guess what? They still get paid. It doesn't matter how bad the movie does. If the movie sucks and people don't go out and watch it, guess what? That's not the actor's fault. Same thing with this. If the owners are such awful businessmen where they signed a bad deal, and they don't know how to handle their business. But okay, but here's the thing. But the owners are asking the players to give back money that's already been pre-agreed. They want them to give back the agreement is over.
It's a new collective, but it's a new bargaining agreement. You're right in the sense that yes, the NBA owners made some bad business decisions. They paid their guys too much money, but they held up to their end of the agreement. The collective bargaining agreement is now over. They're negotiating a new one. They have a right to renegotiate to be profitable. I sound like Tim here, Scotty, but I can't help it. It's the truth. Don't you agree? Do you not see that point?
But what they've been trying to do the whole time is ask players to give back money that they're still under contract for. It's not like if you're a free agent, it doesn't really affect you. I mean, it does affect you, but if you're a player that's under contract right now, it's going to affect you more because the owners are asking you to give back money that they've already agreed to pay you to bail them out because they don't know what they're doing. I mean, think of it like this. And again, I can't stress this enough. If these owners would have put out a product on the floor that would draw the fans, then they wouldn't, be wink, wink, losing money the way they are. I mean, answer me this. All these new ownership groups are jumping in here to try and buy these teams. I think it was 4 of them at the beginning of the summer. If the NBA is losing money, these guys seriously have to be the biggest bunch of dumbasses in the world to want to buy into a losing business, or there's something that's not being said here because, you have 4 new ownership groups buying into an NBA that everybody else, realizes isn't losing money. I mean, what they see is a cash cow right now. I mean, you look at it. There's no way the NBA is losing as much money as they say they are. There might be a couple teams that are losing money, and probably New Orleans. We all know what their situation is. The Charlotte Bobcats, they're a pretty awful team. But for the most part,
fact that Miami can go out and bring in 3 players, let's say 2.5 players that are in the top 10 NBA talent, that alone shows a disparity in what teams can afford to pay out and what teams can't afford to pay out. It has now gotten to the point where it's affected the quality of play on the basketball court because teams are going out and building these dream teams that piss you off as much as they piss me off, Scotty. I mean, New Orleans should have the same opportunity.
Explain San Antonio. Why was Indiana competitive for so long? Look at Oklahoma City. Sacramento for a time was one of the best teams in the NBA.
Competitive and profitable are 2 separate things.
But people are complaining about these super teams and all this stuff, but it's not always the big markets that you have to worry about. I mean,
San Antonio did not have a super team. San Antonio cultivated 2 talents around Tim Duncan. They did a super team, fundamentally sound team. Same thing with Oklahoma City. You got Kevin Durant. Then who do you got? Perk? Westbrook?
You're making my point, though. What I'm saying is teams that built through the draft end up being popular, and the fans come out and watch. If fans come out and watch, you generate more revenue. More jerseys are bought.
I agree with that, but there's a difference between that concept, building your team around a superstar, players who want to come in and play with guys like Larry Bird, like Magic Johnson, like Dirk Nowitzki, and like Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett. And there's a difference between Pat Riley going out and hiring 2.5 players to come out and try and dominate the league because they have the money to do it.
Yeah, but when's the last time you've ever seen that? You've never seen that before. I mean, people that want to try and compare Miami to Boston. Boston built their team through the draft. Okay, but I'm just saying, like, you look at Boston and Miami, because there always seems to be this parallel. Boston built their team through a draft, got tradable assets, went out and got Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett, and they won a championship. Paul Pierce was already here. Then you look at Miami. They had Dwayne Wade. They bought a championship with Shaq. They brought in Posey and Antoine Walker and that whole crew. Well, they were awful, but they essentially threw years away in Wade's career because they had this, handshake deal already with LeBron and Chris Bosh to bring them down there. And, I mean, you're not going to see that all the time. I mean, Carmelo got traded to New York. They're financially screwed. You're not going to see a league of super teams right now.
I agree with that. But the fact that these big market teams, Miami, Boston, New York, L.A., we can afford to go out and hunt down and recruit these players and pay them what they need to be paid. And other teams like, Minnesota, like Sacramento, like
Toronto.
Go down the list, Toronto. I mean, these teams cannot do the same thing because, number one, they have no appeal in their landscape, and number two, they can't afford to pay the players that amount of money. So I'm going back to the San Antonio situation. I'd love to see what Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili's initially signed contracts were. I guarantee you they weren't superstar talent because they weren't. They were talent cultivated around a superstar. That's the way the NBA has always been, going back to the 70s and the 60s. You had a great superstar, one or two, and you based all your talent around those guys. You didn't go out and recruit 5 superstar players that form a new dream team and totally. It's like class warfare. You got the upper echelon of the league way, way, way up at the top, and then you got a bunch of bottom dwellers who can't do anything, and they can't dig out of a hole. Paul, back me up.
Well, here's another thing. I mean, we're talking about the bottom dwellers, the lower end teams of the league, like Toronto, Sacramento. We heard talks of Sacramento being eliminated. So, I mean, at that point, you have to say, all right, you have all these teams that are right on the edge of making profit. You have a few teams, 8 teams that are in the green, and so you have to think these teams like Toronto, if they are in the red, why not contract and go to a smaller league where it's more competitive? I mean, I think I'm in favor of taking away some teams in the league just because. I think it would make the league a lot more competitive than having all the talent spread out through 30 teams.
See, I agree with you there, Brandon. I think if there isn't going to be a revenue sharing system with the owners where the big market teams, share with the lower market teams to basically ensure the, league-wide profit, then I actually have no problem whatsoever with contraction because you look at New Orleans. They've had 2 basketball teams down there that have failed. People forget that they had the Jazz down there. They moved them to Utah for a reason. Now you have the Hornets down there who moved from Charlotte. I mean, now they're owned by the league. I mean, it's just an awful basketball situation down there. Their fans essentially, they really only care about football. New Orleans is, it's been a football town for a long time. That's what it should stay. You look at Charlotte, this is their second basketball team. That's not a really good basketball city. Toronto's actually one of the bigger cities. I think they're one of the bigger market cities. It may not be New York, but Toronto's actually a pretty big market. It's on the East Coast. I don't think they're going to do anything there. Like Memphis or Memphis. It's not a huge market. They got a crazy fan base down there, but how much money are they really bringing in? Do you really need 2 teams in Los Angeles? I agree that contraction is definitely a way to go. The only problem is the players' union will never agree to it because it essentially takes away jobs from a lot of guys. But what it's going to boil down to is, or let me rephrase it so that Nick will understand. The bottom line is what we need to see is we need to see revenue sharing, from the owners of big teams with the owners of little teams. That's why. There's not enough profit, and you have the haves and have-nots here. It's not anything to do with the players. It's because you have a bunch of owners that don't know how to run a business.
Well, let me jump in here real quick as far as the revenue sharing goes. Now, I'm opposed to that. As I stated when we were interviewing Art Rondeau, I think good business should be rewarded, as I think you're saying too, because you're saying how owners are getting themselves into bad contracts. And I don't think there should be a case where the Celtics, say, should have to pay for the failure of other teams that aren't managed as well as they are. So I'm against increased revenue sharing. Just for that matter, I'm a big business guy. Every dog eat dog world. Every man for himself. So I'm actually against. Did you just mutter? Did you just mutter something?
Very Republican of you guys.
We won't get into politics on this show.
You're a Republican, Paul. Are you a Republican?
We won't talk politics on this show, although it may draw some callers.
It may draw callers. Listen, the fact is, we need to Show Scotty the love. Great debate, Scotsman. Thanks for calling in. Thanks to Audley for calling in. Guys, girls, ladies, gentlemen, really a rough time for Hoops fans.
You're ready to go to bed tonight, aren't you?
You know what? I am ready to tune into NBA TV, see what's going on our blog page. And, hit the hay because I got a big meeting for work early tomorrow morning. Not that the listeners care.
Well, we gotta at least let Scotty have a grand entrance considering.
All right. Shall we let Scotty give his exit? Scotty, we're getting ready to wrap, man. You want to give your exit?
Absolutely. Well, we all know the refs suck. It looks like they just signed a new guy to lead the refs. It's one of Stern's goons, so they're going to suck even worse. Stern and all the owners suck. If you agree with them, you suck too. You know how it is. It's just a bunch of garbage right now, and hopefully we can get a season going here soon where we can see the Celtics go back out there and defy all odds and beat the evil dictator Osama bin Stern and win the 18th banner. So everybody out there, have a good night. Shout out to everybody in the chat, PB, Mr. Gelso, everybody out there in Celtics Nation. So have a good night, guys.
Thanks, Scotty. Have a good one.
Always good to hear from the Scotsman. And Brandon, hearing Scotty give his trademark exit makes me miss the NBA season even more.
Yes,
oh my God.
It's tough reality because, like you mentioned earlier, we're looking back last season. I think we were really trying to ignore reality that this was really going to happen. We were just kind of moving along, sticking to Celtics topics, refusing to talk about the potential of something like this happening. And then, bam, this summer.
I see it, Brandon. I seem to remember at one point even saying to you, lockout's never going to happen.
Exactly.
I remember that. I should probably pull that out and create a soundbite out of that. You can play it over and over and over and bust my balls.
Well, I was probably saying the same thing because I think most NBA fans were trying to ignore the reality of this happening because we thought that they would be able to negotiate and get something done, but it hasn't been done. They're not negotiating, and we're in for definitely we're at least missing 2 weeks now, and probably more games are going to be canceled in the future.
All right, folks, you have tuned in to the Celtics Late Night Show right here live on CLNSradio.com. Stay tuned to YouTube where this episode will be uploaded. Be able to tune in there. Also, don't forget iTunes. We're on iTunes. Absolutely subscribe to our feed and all the feeds, all the shows on the network, including The Breakdown. We had Audley on tonight. He was kind enough to call in. Great caller, as always. And, of course, our featured guest this evening was Art Rondeau. Where can we SpaldingSports.com, Brandon?
No, you're completely off.
As usual.
Yeah. ArtRondo.com. You can check out his stuff at ArtRondo.com and also follow.
It's RONDEAU. ArtRondo.com. Go ahead.
Not the same as Rajon Rondo, but Rondo. And also on Twitter at ArtRondo, RONDEAU.
Folks, stay tuned into the CLNS Radio for your NBA lockout news. I'm certain, as I said earlier, articles are being ready to be posted by the Beat team right now as we speak. Again, full slate broadcast schedule for this week. I'm certain a lot of the topics on the shows coming up over the course of the next 4 to 5 days are going to be related to the NBA lockout. So certainly stay tuned to CLNS Radio for your NBA fix during this work stoppage, time of silence, difficult stretch here for NBA fans. Thanks for listening, guys, and CLNS Radio. We'll catch you soon.
Peace out.
If you're blue and you don't know where to go to, why don't you go where action fits? Putting on the red. Different types to wear a day coat, pants with stripes, and cutaway coat, perfect fit. Putting on the red. Dressed up like $1 million trooper, trying hard to look like Gary Cooper. Come, let's mix where Rockefellers walk with sticks or umbrellas in the mix. Putting on the red. Have you seen the well-to-do up and down Park Avenue on that famous thoroughfare with the news? sitting on the roof. Different types to wherever they go, pants with front